live audience. No one is allowed to do retakes. No one is allowed to do multiple versions. No one is allowed to start again.
Some people want to see the bill after I'm done.
Yeah. We make them do the trick on stage once, like a real magic act, like really perform.
Let's go. Here's some real magic in your face.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Cordkillers. Our magic is that we give you the intel in your brain from the front lines of the cord-cutting revolution so that you can control what you watch, when you watch it, where you watch it, on what device you watch it. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey, man, I'm Brian Brushwood, and I don't know if you noticed, but I was in that promo, Tom. Did you see that? That promo? That was me. That was me.
You are just so much more amazing in person.
Yeah, man, if you haven't heard from the social media, I'm going to be on tonight's Penn and Teller's Fool Us, and we're going to try an experiment. We're going to try to live spoil it as for the folks who are here watching live and give you a little bit of commentary.
Never say we don't push the boundaries of spoiling on Spoiler Time.
Our spoiling scientists are looking for new ways to ruin materials for everyone.
Our spoilientists.
And I'll tell you who spoils me is the fine, gorgeous, even symmetrical features of one Andrew Main, host of star of A&E's Don't Trust Andrew Main and best-selling author. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic, Bri. Long time no see. Tom, when are we going to get hamburgers and maybe pie soon?
Let's go to Hamburgers and Pie and do that.
Like at the same place? That sounds insane.
Called Hamburgers and Pie.
Yeah, in Pasadena. We'll go.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I'm just still a little starstruck seeing Brian up there with Penn and Teller. He belongs. They should be a trio. Penn, Teller, and
Teller
Schwood.
were a little starstruck.
Schwood and Teller? Penn, Schwood, and Teller?
Penn and Teller and the other one could be the new name. It could be. I could be recast in the third season of it.
I'm going to go see them on Broadway in a couple weeks. And
Are you?
I'm going to shout from the audience, you know, guys!
In the middle of their act.
Yeah.
Hey, man, should we jump in with the primary target?
Yeah, let's do that. That's a good idea. All right, I'm gonna have to ask for your patience, and I apologize for this. This is gonna take a little bit of setup here. The top line on our primary target is that U.S. District Judge George Wu in Los Angeles, West Coast Court, ruled that Alki David's FilmOn X is entitled to a compulsory license for streaming broadcast television. Now, there's two things to learn on this. One is what a compulsory license means, and one is why this is significant. The compulsory license allows the small cost of carriage to be paid for must-carry television stations. It's been that way since 1976. Basically, you can't say, no, we're not going to let you carry it. And Aereo tried to get this. Ivy tried to get this. Stations who opt for retrans consent, though, can turn down must-carry status and force a good faith negotiation over the price. So the reason I'm explaining that is that you're going to be like, well, wait a minute, a compulsory license should mean that any broadcast network always gets carried on cable. And as we know, there's always these fights over fees. Why are there still fights over fees? And if there are fights over fees and you can prevent a cable station from carrying you, why do the broadcast networks care if Alki David's FilmOn TV gets a compulsory license if they can just say, well, you have to pay us more money than you're willing to? It's because of the good faith negotiations. Here's the other part of this. There was in February 2011, a ruling by District Judge Naomi Buchwald granting an injunction to shut down Ivy, which was a service trying to say, hey, we've got the compulsory license. We're allowed to do this. The same right was denied to Aereo after they lost their Supreme Court case by a Manhattan federal court in October 2014. It was one of their last-ditch efforts to say, okay, the Supreme Court said we should be treated like a cable company, so we get a compulsory license, right? However, at the same time, just to confuse the issue a little more, the FCC has launched a comment period that we're in the middle of about changing the rules to say anybody who's an over-the-top video provider on the internet should qualify as what's called a multi-channel preferred video distributor, and that would qualify them for the compulsory license. So there's all kinds of balls in the air here. Does any of this make any sense to anybody?
Barely. Like I'm barely holding on by a thread. But what is curious to me is Alki David is the one that does kind of ridiculous, over the top, flagrant violations of
the charitable laws. Way is to say he pushes the boundary as far as it can go.
Yes. Okay, so and it's just surprising to hear that he attained a victory in the same space that Aereo, somebody who, a company that, and we've talked about on the show, by all intents and purposes, will look like they was going out of their way to create a Rube Goldberg machine just to obey the law. And why do you suppose that is? It's just the mood of the judge, or luck of the draw?
It's interesting, too, that it's a West Coast court, which you think would be friendlier to Hollywood, saying, oh, yeah, no, he gets to do this. And the East Coast court out of Manhattan told Aereo that they couldn't. So
Which court was this?
This was the district court for Los Angeles.
Interesting. That's interesting. He is a character, and that was, you saw him as the Aereo trial was going on, how he was just trying to piggyback on that, and then when that fell apart, Aereo's like, you know what, we put enough money into this, we're going to move on, but he's just keep pushing at it. It is interesting to see that where you have the different courts are feeling differently how they interpret this, and these decisions are being made. I don't know which way's up anymore.
Yeah. Well, because the thing is, if I'm a cable company, not on the internet, I get a compulsory license. But then a broadcast television company can come to me and say, aha, I am turning down the right to be carried, and now we have to agree on a transmission fee, but the regulation from the 90s says we have to have good faith negotiations. So I can't just, as a broadcast network, come in and say, and so you have to pay me $1 million per subscriber. Like, there has to be a reasonable negotiation. What internet companies have faced up until now is that there was no compulsory license, so that the broadcasters could just say, well, no, you don't get to carry us, and that's the end of the conversation. Even if they got a compulsory license, the reason the broadcasters wouldn't just say, well, we're going to charge them too much and they won't want it, is that they have to go through the negotiations. They have to negotiate in good faith. They can't just jack up a price that's even reasonable and say, well, you won't pay it, that's it. And they don't want to have to do that.
You know what? I'm just going to see what's on Netflix tonight, guys.
So how long do you think we start to see the reverberations of this effect? Because it seems like this is the kind of thing that would make it a more popular market to get into. As you get more of these court decisions that show that it is possible to create a virtual cable network, an over the top service. I mean,
that's the weird thing, right? First of all, he didn't lift the injunction, even though he ruled it out in FilmOn's favor. He didn't lift the injunction, so FilmOn still can't stream. He allowed an immediate appeal to the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals because there is a differing district court decision out there that he disagrees with. So this still has to go through the courts to be determined. And at the same time, the FCC's back there, as I mentioned, saying maybe we should just grant MPVD status to online players, in which case FilmOn wouldn't even have to fight this court case anymore, and neither would Aereo have had to, should they still have existed, which they don't.
So in an alternate universe, this decision that Aereo lost, would that have significantly protected them? Would we still have Aereo today if they had won this?
If they had won it, they would have been able to keep fighting in the courts, obviously. If they had won it, if they had won the right to the compulsory license, then what we'd be hearing about is probably court cases over whether there were good faith negotiations with Aereo or not. And you'd be seeing CBS calling their bluff on whether they'd take their broadcast rights and go home and all of that sort of thing. But if the FCC comes in and says, no, we're going to call over-the-top MPVDs, that's game over. That says, like, no, they're the same as cable networks, so there's nothing to litigate. There's no court case to be had at that point.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to say that we have now reached the end of Brian's capability to understand the intricacies of this legal side
By the
of
way,
things.
MPVD is multi-channel video programming distributor. Well, I'm curious, before we move on, like, what is it that's confusing you at the end at this point?
Just because I barely grasp.
Yeah, Brian, what are you, stupid?
I barely grasp the nature of the legality side of things. But then when I try to make the leap to what this means moving forward, that's when I lose my ability to even speculate. I mean, my answer might as well be, and then a Tyrannosaurus Rex shows up, right? I mean, it's,
okay, well, I think I can help you there. What this means is if the FCC declares over the top qualifies as a multi-channel whatever I just said, multi-channel programming video distributor.
Right.
Or FilmOn wins through all the way to the end in this court case, then Sling TV can start carrying local channels.
Aha. Now we're talking my language. Now I'm reading you loud and clear. By the way, I don't know. Speaking of which, I don't know if I mentioned it last week. Oh no, I did. I cut the cord and switched to Sling, and the kids grumbled because now they don't get to choose what Disney programming they're watched. Just whatever the faucet's spitting out at that moment. But they seem terribly happy with it.
So Disney is supposed to be able to authenticate Sling TV at some point, but I guess that hasn't happened yet, huh?
I don't know. I just loaded up the Sling app and said, congratulations, kid. Here's your new way of watching TV.
Yeah. So I mean, Sling TV is trying to get local channels on their own without having the advantage of the compulsory license or MPVD status or any of that. But if they were to get that status, that would just make it easy because they already have good relationships with lots of these companies anyway.
All right. Well, talking about over-the-top cable company experiences, we have a live breaking story joined by longtime patron and contributor of the Hockey Buzz. Is it the HockeyBuzz.net?
HockeyBuzz.com.
HockeyBuzz.com. It's Eck. How are you, sir?
Or the Expos hat. Nice.
Hey, Brian. Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. You're smiling, which means I suppose you just had a real pleasant conversation for the last hour or so.
Oh, man. If only I was smart enough to record these things. But yeah, I was on with PlayStation View. Like the incredible service, cord-cutting service that PlayStation View is. I was on with them for about an hour and a half when all is said and done. I've been using the service. I love it. It's been working flawlessly for me. I also belong to Sling TV as well, which I know you're a big fan of, right? And suddenly my PlayStation View service was discontinued, and I was told I had to call customer service, which I did. At which point they told me that I wasn't going to be able to have any more service because I was using my PlayStation 4 box in 2 different locations within the Philadelphia area, and that I had been nixed because of it.
So I assume that they were accusing you of essentially account sharing. Just even though is it tied to your specific hardware? I mean, if I don't know what kind of back end DRM equivalent they have on that.
Right. It's not, and it's funny because the customer service people I was talking to were very nice, and they were realizing what I was saying was they're like, yeah, that makes sense. I don't know why we do it that way. And I kept going up. I went to 3 supervisors before I finally figured out that no one there knew anything really that could help me. So what it is it's tied to your IP address that you originally signed on from. So I originally signed on at my house. I also have a place at the beach, which is about an hour from here, but also the Philadelphia area. And I've been taking my PlayStation View to the beach because we don't have cable TV at the beach, and it's been great. It's been fantastic. I've also taken my Xbox for the other room with the kids, and they've been using Sling TV, which has been fantastic. I actually like PlayStation View's interface better than Sling TV's.
Yeah, it's more familiar. It's got local channels. It's got more channels. Got it. Okay, I'm with you.
Right. So it's all good. So they tell me no, and I say, well, you guys are competing. I'm getting rid of cable at my shore place because I have your service. I said I go on a show called Cordkillers, and I often talk about this sort of thing. And I said, this really makes me want to point people towards Sling TV. And the guy says to me, no joke, he says, well, you wouldn't just take your cable box out of your house and take it to the shore, would you?
Like, no, that's why I wanted an internet provider, because it gives me the freedom to do stuff like that, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's what you want, right?
Can I ask you the dumb question? Are they even equipped to let you buy multiple accounts to do this? Because I've had other instances before, like, no, you can't use it twice. Well, can I create a separate account? No.
Right. Well, he said you could, but you'd be paying twice as much. And I said, but I've been using this for the last month at both places, and it hasn't been an issue. Why is it suddenly an issue now? He said, well, you're allowed one time. We'll let you slide if, say, you changed your internet because it's IP address based, and if you have one new IP address.
That's the other strange thing to me. Like, don't most households get assigned a new IP every week? And anyway, it's like, how would they even know?
That's probably why it took them a month to crack down on him, because they probably have a very sensible policy of like, well, people's IP addresses change. As long as it changes and stays changed, then we won't crack down. But his kept changing back and forth.
Huh.
Right. I was going back and forth. I have Verizon, Fios, and I have Comcast down there at the shore as far as the internet provider. Right?
I gotta feel like they're cracking down on someone who isn't you, and you just got caught up in the dragnet. I can't believe that that they really. I mean,
His pattern of behavior, though, even though it's physical, looks like people trying to account share, like people in two different places in Philadelphia logging in.
I get that, but
not.
I said, why would you tie this to IP address when I'm using it on a single box? Like, doesn't the PlayStation 4 have some kind of unique identifier?
Yeah, that's what I would wonder. You would think it would be able to, identify its serial number and tie itself to the hardware. Yeah.
Sony, which is known for really having its hardware and its software teams tied in together.
All of its teams. The movie industry works so well with the computer part of it. Eck, what was this? Are you able to at least keep it in one place now, or did they just ban you?
I'm not. They told me I can't have it anymore.
They kicked you to the curb.
I'm thrown out.
Boo!
And I said,
Save
listen,
Eck,
I go on a show
hashtag.
where I would recommend your service. I said, I know I'm a hockey writer. I said, but I have friends who run a show that's all about this. And I said, you're not competing with cable TV. That's why I wouldn't take my cable box with me from place to place. You're competing with Sling TV and Hulu and Netflix, and I can watch that wherever the hell I want.
Oh, that's so amazing. We have another story coming up.
I want to jump right to that story, Brian, if you don't mind. I'm just going to pull this right out of the front lines here. There is a report from a research firm called Parks Associates that was estimating that actual account sharing, where people who are not in the same household log into things like HBO Go and Netflix, loses companies up to $500 million worldwide. 6% of U.S. broadband households use a service paid for by someone outside the house. And you know what? Services like HBO and Netflix pretty much shrugged. They're like, yeah, we know. We're not going to crack down on that. Netflix does the thing where they can let you do 4 streams at a time if you buy a little more expensive. HBO is just like, no, we just want people to adopt the service because that'll get them addicted and then they'll want to pay for it later. So Sony could really learn from the example of HBO and Netflix's reaction to this made-up $500 million, which isn't even true.
Well, and let's say it was. Almost certainly they're getting $500 million of value in goodwill, in exposure out of it. And I'm sorry. Yeah, go for it.
Can I be devil's advocate here? How much of this, but all those are people who are the content providers, where this is, the Sony is sort of another layer on top of it. Are they trying to appease the content providers by saying, no, we're not going to allow them to do this? Because a lot of times these limitations are put in place by those people as opposed to the
Bingo. That's the difference. Netflix controls all of the content. They get the rights to do it from the beginning the way they do it. HBO controls all of their content. Sony is having to deal with Comcast Universal, Fox, CBS.
Oh, sure. And it's
ABC Disney is the only one not in the Sony universe. So yeah, I think you nailed it, Andrew.
And plus it's a delicate piece to begin with. So I can understand that, they're bowing to pressure where it's like you're not doing anything to stop password, for all we know behind the scenes, Sony is the one saying like, no, look, this is what everyone's doing and it's working out really well for them. And, they get told no.
It's crazy though, Brian, because I like this. I'm one of the, if I'm from the other side of things, if I'm a Sony person right now, I would be just furious that this was the reaction that I've been kicked out of the service, because I actually do like it. Sling TV is not on PlayStation 4, right? For this obvious reason. And I get the fact that they have local TV, which makes things different, and they have to be in certain markets where they are now. And I get they're making individual deals, but that's another gripe I had with them. And after I got kicked off, I said, and another thing is this. Comcast Sportsnet, which is a very controversial thing because they have their own cable network, and they were surprisingly on PlayStation View for me. Comcast Sportsnet Philadelphia, which shows the Flyers and the Phillies and the 76ers games. I'm like, wow, that's pretty open-minded of Comcast, I thought to myself. And then I go on the other night to watch a Phillies game, and it's blacked out on PlayStation View.
Wow. Do me a favor before we wrap up and let you get back to raging. I just want your fist in the air as if it's your mortal enemy and shout, Sony!
Sony!
Keep us posted. Let us know if anyone reaches out and tries to fix things for you.
Yeah,
Will do,
come
guys.
on,
Have
Sony.
a great show.
I get what happened. I totally get what happened. I think Andrew has exactly the right idea of why they have this policy. But once you find out and you spend 45 minutes with a guy who's like, no, really, I wasn't trying to get around your rules. I thought this would work. At least let him have one account at one idea. Come on.
I know. And
he's
then
turned
tell
into
me this is equivalent of me taking my cable box out of my house to the shore.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. And please let the man give you his money. That's all we're saying, Sony.
I'm just begging you. Have a great show, guys.
All right, and take care, Eck. Eck, man, he's one of our oldest and one of my favorite patrons. You know, we got that's how we pay for this
He's
thing.
our boss. He is. He's one of 2,114 of our bosses.
2,114. That's remarkable.
Yeah,
yeah,
you know
man.
what happened that year?
What's amazing is people chip in whatever spare change they got laying around. Whatever the show's worth to them. Some people like to give us some cash because we save them a bunch of money by bringing them the best alternatives to their traditional cable bill. Other people just believe in the value for value model. Some people just like your beard, and then they throw that money there. And they do it all at patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Look inside your heart and ask, how much is Cordkillers worth to me, and how much do I have to give? If the answer to both of those is honestly 0, we understand. But if it's not, go to patreon.com/Cordkillers and write down that number.
And check your credit cards. Yeah, all y'all's credit cards keep expiring, and you all forget
email
to
me your
update them.
credit card number. Let's get some signals intelligence in this house.
Yeah.
These graphics are awesome.
Why, thank you.
It's like these weird things.
So Wall Street Journal says it has sources, and I'll give Wall Street Journal's track record on sources is pretty good. They say they have some sources that Hulu is considering. It's not necessarily gonna happen. Considering an ad-free tier for $12 to $14 a month. So let's set aside the veracity of that, whether it will actually happen. Let's just assume that in the boardrooms of Hulu right now, they're having a serious discussion of like, hey, can we get away with this? Will the advertisers get mad? How much should we charge? Brian, would you pay something like $12 to $14 to get rid of ads on Hulu?
Yeah, great job on the timing, Hulu. I finally was making peace with the fact that what you really do is just offer traditional television experience on mobile devices, and now you're actually sit on the pot or get off the pot, but don't keep jerking me around. I mean, either try to be television or try to be Netflix.
Hulu's pointing at the Wall Street Journal like, it's their fault. We didn't do anything. We're just talking about it.
Hey man, we're just fantasy. We just got wicked high and sat on the couch and be like, whoa, what if we went ad free, man?
So it sounds like it would anger you. Andrew, what about you?
I mean, it's another case. Hulu's another case of somebody that has to balance a bunch of different interests in mind. When they first launched and they go to the networks and say, hey, we want to do this thing, the networks are terrified that, well, we're trying to talk Ford into giving us $500 million in advertising this year. And if we're going to tell them the same show that we're trying to get them to sponsor on NCIS or whatever won't have those ads online, it's a deal breaker. And that was the world when that started. Was that the advertisers had that kind of pull because we didn't have successful script subscription models to the degree that we do now via Netflix and seeing where things are going. That's changing as Hulu looks to see, as people look around and see how popular Netflix is and how that's a network in and of its own with no commercials. I think they've got to go there. And that was the promise of Hulu, was the idea of like, oh man, yeah, I'd pay to not have to watch commercials while I'm watching Bones. And then you watch Hulu and you're like, wow, they're commercials. Why don't I just DVR this?
Yeah, and that's the whole point. Is I would love to. There's got to be a great behind the scenes tell all book about the Hulu story. I mean, Hulu, by all outside appearances, looked like it was a conglomeration of people building a business intending for it to fail just so they could stick it in the eye of YouTube and have a quote unquote legal competitor to it. And instead, we saw amazing transformations and backpedaling. I mean, it's unreal.
I think the story is there were people who really wanted to create. I mean, I know a lot of people on TV who are very, very forward thinking, but they have to answer to the advertising department. They have to answer to shareholders and people who have a very limited purview of how far they look. And they can have the biggest ambitions in the world, but when those people say, no, you can't do this, this is what the product has to do, we tend to think that there's someone overmind making these decisions when it's a lot of different people and some really incredibly smart people being handicapped by people who don't see the future.
I'm looking at this combined with the Showtime bundling that Hulu is doing now, and I'm seeing Hulu sneaking in the side door as an online cable company. Imagine the pitch of get all of the shows from Fox, NBC, and ABC, plus amazing back catalogs of all the episodes of Seinfeld and Showtime for $20 a month.
That sounds incredibly compelling. I mean, it's
Take
weird.
my
Like
money now, Tom.
it sounds like I gotta feel like Sling. It's a testament to how Sling is really changing up the market. I mean, it's like I feel like all of a sudden this new player busted in, and Hulu's having to play a bit of Me Too catch up.
Everybody's looking at that and going, "Oh, wait a minute, they're not doing it right." But they're doing it, and they're getting us subscribers, and we need those subscribers. So yeah, it's good. Let's gear up. I feel like
If you insist, I'm going gear free,
Oh wow, robots.
including my clothes.
wow. Yeah, you're looking good. Put your shirt on. Hey, Slingbox has a new bundle called the Slingbox M2, which is essentially the $150 Slingbox M1 with all of your apps for free for $200. So you just pay $50 extra, and instead of having to pay $15 or $20 for the apps on your mobile devices to access Slingbox, not Sling, you pay $50 up front, and then you get them. However, they apparently have seamlessly integrated ads, at least on the desktop version of this, and maybe on the mobile version. I haven't verified that.
Oh yeah. So wait a minute. So this means you buy the object to let you watch traditional TV with ads, and they seamlessly start laying more ads over your ads so that you can watch your ads.
I'm very curious what they mean about this as regards the mobile apps. Right now, the iOS and Android apps for Sling don't have ad integration, or at least I haven't noticed it on mine. Back in March, they added ads to the desktop player. So there were ads on the sidebar, and once you start your app, they would do a 30-second pre-roll. Now, that's it. After that, you don't see any more ads. There's already a class action suit against that, though, saying, hey, wait a minute. When we bought our Slingbox, you never said there would be a pre-roll or any kinds of ads at all. So there's people fighting that fight. If this didn't have that complication around it, I'd be like, oh, okay, so get all the software for $50 if you know you're going to buy more than a couple of apps. It seemed like a smart bundle.
I can't believe that Slingbox hasn't filed suit against Sling TV for brand confusion.
They're owned by the same company. So
well, then that fixes it.
That's how Dish was able to use the word Sling.
Got it. Zip. Shutting up now.
Still can't believe why they haven't filed suit. It's like, I mean, Coke Zero did it, guys.
For instance. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That Coke Zero campaign. Would this compel you to jump on the Slingbox bandwagon, Andrew?
I have a first generation Slingbox that's like still sitting on my TV in Florida, like broadcasting on an IP channel that I haven't checked in like 6 years. Maybe, I was really happy with just iTunes and buying movies when I wanted them and the stuff that came on Netflix. And then Showtime came on, and Showtime has, first it was, once HBO was there, and then now Showtime's on my Apple TV, and now these other kinds of things are coming into play. My consumption pattern's changing, and it starts to look more attractive. It kind of was what I originally wanted back in the day. So I'm maybe.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I am utterly shocked at how quickly. The first time I quit cable, it took a long time to figure out how to get legally a lot of the stuff, and ultimately I decided that, well, screw it, I'll just pay $3 an episode for everything I really care about. And so as a result, my Amazon is this hodgepodge of episodes of The Walking Dead and Breaking Bad and so on. The second time I quit cable, it was amazing. It was like a switch flipped. First of all, they were cooler about taking it back. And it was like within a day, I had HBO Now and Sling TV. And I can't even think of what else I need or wanted. And the first complication from that I'm having is I realized, oh, golly, I really wish I had a DVR since Penn and Teller Fool Us is about to show. And I have no way to record it. I have to shout to the internet, somebody please rip this for me.
Which, I mean, if you had set up a TV tuner with a DVR, you would have that. But I think that's compelling to your story is that this is your first instance of needing that.
Yes. And it took much longer to get to this first take-up than I had expected.
All right, let's take a quick break. We always like to talk about stuff that we're doing that helps us continue to be able to do what we do, not just Cordkillers, but everything else. I write books. My books aren't nearly as good as Andrew Main's, though. So start by going to andrewmain.com/books and buying Night School now in paperback. Once you've actually read a real author's book, then you can waste $3.99 playing around with Citadel 32 at TomMerrittBooks.com. And if you can only choose one, go buy Andrew's book because he's a real author. But if you want to see like what I'm messing around with, just help me out, TomMerrittBooks.com.
Tom, I love your stuff, and what I love about your books is it's what I love about Tom. I feel in your book. I feel like your approach towards stuff. So I'm going to highly recommend Tom's books too. So
Thanks, Andrew.
Go check that out. I'm a fan. I'm a bit of a fan, Tom. Not going to hide it here.
Stop! I'm a big fan of you.
And I'm going to tell you what too. You read Tom's books? You like Tom's books? Go on Amazon. Tell people what you loved about it. Write a blurb. That can help so much. And be sincere. I mean, be honest. Not like if you haven't read it, I'm not going to tell you. But if you read it and you thought like I should do this, every review matters. Go tell the people on Amazon, write a blurb, tell them what you loved about the book. That's easy. You don't have to write a whole book report, but say, I loved this. I love this about the characters. I love the way his humor came into play. I love this. Tell people what you loved, what was personal about it, and that makes a big difference. Amazon, once you start hitting a certain point, 40 or 50 reviews, whatever, magic things happen as far as how you get ranked and how you get organized and how people find your stuff. So if you love Tom, do it.
Yeah.
Do it for any author you love.
Yeah.
I think that's
Okay.
That was kind of a hint, guys.
All right, listen up,
Shall we
Author
frontline?
Love Fest.
Also, I just got to thank. I am at the home of the Winter Twins. They are the authors of the Strand Prophecy, which is if you want kind of like exoskeletons, you want evolving human behavior, you want graphic novel style, but in a literary fashion, but with some cool pictures and stuff. Check out the Strand Prophecy by the Winter Twins on Amazon. So,
And that brings us to the front lines.
Front lines.
There they are.
Hey guys, HBO Now is available on Android and Amazon Fire tablets, and is coming in weeks to Fire TV and Android TV. This is huge, man. I love my HBO Now service. I think it's much better than HBO Go. Are you guys going to use them on any of those other devices?
I installed it on my my Nexus 9. I don't know when I watch HBO Now on my television. And I've canceled HBO from DirecTV, by the to No need for it.
Look at that. Look at that. It's baby steps. It's happening. It's speaking of which, how close to or is the Merritt household to drop a cable?
It's a feather's breadth away.
Oh,
So, yeah.
It'd be amazing.
Yeah.
The only reason I have cable is for my house in Florida, so I can watch it on Dropcam.
I think
awesome.
I could probably cancel it, and she might not notice.
Well, that's what I did. I didn't
Yeah.
tell the kids. I just went and canceled it and waited until they're like, "Hey, I want to watch some Disney. It's not working." And then it was like bleep blop bloop. Sling TV. We're done.
Netflix said in its earnings call it has no plans to raise prices, but it will encourage customers to upgrade to more expensive plans with better quality streams. So that's how it expects to increase revenue. CEO Reed Hastings, while wearing a BoJack Horseman sweater, no joke,
That's awesome.
also expressed support for the Charter Time Warner cable merger because, hey, Charter doesn't charge Netflix for interconnections, so why wouldn't he?
That is amazing. Did you? I for years have said and believed that for what you get out of Netflix, it's so underpriced. I would pay double.
Shut your mouth, Brian. They're listening.
Well, I mean, what's your upper limit? What would it take to make you give it up? Like to say no?
Well, I don't go to Netflix for really movies anymore because they're just the movie selection just isn't there. Mm-hmm. But their originals is great, and so when they're if they're doing, part of it, the problem though is like HBO is great for me when it's Game of Thrones, and I was last year's True Detective was exciting and a reason to keep subscribing to it. This year's True Detective, if it hadn't last year, wouldn't be as exciting to do that. But looking forward to Westworld. So the same thing with like Netflix. If they keep this original content stuff going, like, I mean, listen, I'll probably keep. Keep upping it. I'd probably keep doing it. I love Daredevil. I'm excited about Jessica Jones. I'm excited about all that stuff. And so you add up the value, it's great.
Yeah, right.
And I love the show, like the new. I've been using the new Showtime Now or the Showtime service too, which has been really good. Ray Donovan.
YouTube says it signed up partners accounting for 90% of its viewing to take part in a paid service that would remove ads, but sources say none of those partners include major broadcast and cable networks. I missed this story, Tom. Can you talk to me about what this means? That's
all it means. They've got the PewDiePies and the Fine Brothers of the world signed up for this, but they do not have CBS, NBC, and ABC signed up. And essentially, the way YouTube's rolling this out, they're saying, if you want to monetize your channel, you agree to the subscription service, because we don't want ads playing on videos that when people are paying for subscription service, to remove ads. So you sign, when the monetization package now is, I agree to be part of the subscription service and have ads roll on my videos for people who aren't part of the subscription service. And the broadcast networks are not signing up. I don't know, it's because they just don't want to monetize their ads. They just see it as promotional and they don't want to be part of the subscription service anyway, or what?
I think they want to be able to set their ad prices too, though, because they get into a position where they're going to compete with themselves. So if you're like, well, what's the ad price for an online view of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. versus, watching it on TV or broadcast, they would rather have much more control over that than
YouTube. I was thinking of it more about clips than about full episodes, right? So a clip of Jimmy Fallon. And when you think about I don't think they roll ads before those, do they? Usually?
No.
I get pre-roll before some of them. I mean,
you do?
Depends,
okay.
I guess.
Well, yeah. Usually depends on who's posting them. I to be honest, my advice to any YouTube creator out there is don't even bother to monetize your ads, because unless you're on the top 0.001% of all creators, the amount of money you'd actually get is insignificant, and nobody will be happier going into your video for having sat through a unskippable 15 or 30-second ad.
I will tell you what I think. If you're a YouTube creator, you should be nice to my wife because she works there. Full disclosure. Sling TV's new ads show children bullying adults into paying for cable and signing contracts.
It's awesome. Real quick, give me a little bit of audio on this, because they just have kids.
And like it.
Hidden costs.
And there's a rental fee for all of this.
Strong-arm tactics.
Hey, Jack, your bill is due.
They do purple nurples.
No,
they do
you
wet
can't
willies.
lower your
I mean, they do all the
You
bullying
signed
stuff that
a
kids actually do.
contract.
Here's what's amazing to me is that Sling is, of course, owned by Dish. So it's Dish. They're making fun of themselves. That's how savvy and smart they are, is that they understand that millennials who might get Sling, this is how millennials feel about television, and old TV is dumb. It's just dumb, dumb, dumb.
It's the classic steal from yourself gambit. They're like, all right, if we can get people to cancel Dish, but they buy Sling TV instead, we still win. We still got their money instead of canceling Dish and getting something else.
Yeah. Hey, man, this autumn, 112 U.S. TV stations will begin streaming live newscasts through an app called NewsOn. Verizon is also in talk with 300 stations that want to send programming directly to customers. Is this all local news stuff or what?
Yeah, U.S. TV stations. So the stuff that they have the rights to on their own, which is usually local news channels. There might be some entertainment programming, magazines, Bay Area Backroads type stuff showing up as well. But it's the local channels finally getting in on the action, saying, okay, we need to take matters into our own hands.
I can't wait to find out who won the quilting show in Altadena. That's going to be exciting.
Well, I wonder, okay, if this succeeds, right? I feel like this is a slow motion process. At what point do some of these channels, especially the independent channels that don't have network affiliations, just go virtual and just say, you know what?
Yeah, why are we bothering to broadcast or have a broadcast license fee or whatever? Why don't we charge $1.99, a month for our stuff? Yeah, that's fascinating.
Because right now, the reason they don't is that their audience doesn't know how to access that stuff yet. But if NewsOn were to become popular and everybody's like, oh, do you have the NewsOn app? Oh, yeah, of course I have the NewsOn app. Then all of a sudden they have a platform they could jump to.
Well, and also, we do kind of roll our eyes at the podunk reputation of small town news. But I'll tell you what, man. When the sky's black outside and you see trees getting blown over, you suddenly really, really want the comforting of the grinning ear to ear weatherman who's realized this is his big moment for Twister or whatever to talk you through it.
So in LA, as Tom will test to, we've been having like just record rain showers and lightning, which you never get here. And I'm driving along in my car, listening to music, and all of a sudden I hear that. I can't do a really accurate version because we'll get sued by the FCC with that warning, which normally follows. This has been a test, but it's like, no, flash flooding, in this area, this road's washed out. I'm like, oh man, this is what it's like when you're in real time listening to broadcast.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And this could be another venue for that sort of thing to reach people who aren't listening to radio or watching television directly.
I want to watch all my Taiwanese reenactments directly.
Yeah.
Up next, a kitten who's banana for 5 things that will kill you in your home, or as I call it, under surveillance. The Pablo Escobar story Narcos is a series coming to Netflix and premieres on August 28th. They've got a couple trailers out for it. It looks compelling. I'm almost underwhelmed now. I'm like, oh, another brilliant-looking series from Netflix. I don't know if I have time to watch it.
Boring.
Yeah, it's getting a wee bit busy, a little crowded on my Netflix queue. Having a hard time keeping up with everything.
And that's true of HBO. That's true of Showtime.
Yeah.
I don't watch all of the shows from AMC either, right? So Netflix is reaching par.
It's exciting, and as a content creator, it's exciting because the outlets that you have where it used to be like, well, we can always try online, and now it's like, whoa, there's Netflix in this, and when you're looking at just such high quality programming coming out of there, and we talked about how the Emmys, where where all the really great stuff is coming out of cable and internet. How lucky we are.
Speaking of which, what's the scoop on the Chirac film?
Spike Lee's Chirac film will be the first Amazon original gang violence in inner city Chicago. It's the first Amazon original movie about gang violence in inner city Chicago. The expectation is that the film would open in December in theaters in order to qualify for participation in the Oscars race. And Amazon Prime has said that its movies will go to theaters first and then hit Amazon Prime Instant Video 4 to 8 weeks after the big screen. So shorter than most movies to get to Amazon Prime, but not the day and date that Netflix is planning for its movies.
Yeah, and the problem with that is going to be like, Amazon, when they launched their publishing company, like, hey, we're going to publish books too. Bookstores won't carry it, and it's going to be interesting to see what kind of theater coverage they're going to get with this stuff when
essentially the biggest play is like, hi, we're here to make your institution irrelevant.
Well, and that's why I wonder why they're doing the 4 to 8 weeks thing, because Netflix going day and date is because they don't care about making money off it in the theater. They just want it to qualify for awards. That's all they care about.
Right.
So Amazon's like kind of splitting the difference, like trying to help the theaters, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
So what have you been watching, Andrew Main?
I've been watching Ray Donovan, the new Showtime app. I said, on the Apple TV, I said, let me watch this. I never watched Ray Donovan, got into that. I, almost finished with, I'm up to finish the first 2 seasons of that. And True Detective, season 2. I love the first season. This one's a little bit, different for me. And I think that's a lot of people having that same experience. But those have been, my 2 must-watch things. In Ballers on HBO.
We'll talk about True Detective in spoiler-in time. You didn't happen to make it out to see Ant-Man, did you?
No, I'm going to go see that right after this.
Oh, great. And then what about you, Tom? Is muted. Time.
I hit my mic and then forgot to unmute it. I have been continuing to watch Clone Wars. I don't know if that makes me a horrible person. It was when we were all reading How Star Wars Conquered the Universe. Mm-hmm. It got me starting watching it. So I'm like,
I made it through most of Clone Wars, and there's some really good, when they're not talking about galactic banking, there's some good episodes in there. And I'm a big fan of Star Wars Rebels.
And I actually really like Star Wars Rebels, and I'm starting to see as I'm getting farther away from the first season of Clone Wars how it's beginning to feel a little closer to that. I also caught up on Wayward Pines, so I watched the most recent episode this week. It is summer television, but it's enjoyable. Like I don't expect too much of it, and it's got twists, and as long as I don't try to tie those twists back to earlier episodes too closely, it's keeping me entertained. We'll talk about True Detective in spoiler in time. I saw Ant-Man. We'll talk about that. And I caught up on Mr. Robot, watched episodes 3 and 4. Episode 4 I thought was trippy and weird, but I liked it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to keep my promise to get caught up on that. We'll have to do like a Mr. Robot extravaganza next week. But I did watch Ant-Man, which we'll talk about. True Detective we'll talk about. I did jump back up on the Sense8 train, and it was cool because I asked Bonnie. I was like, hey, what do you want to watch? And there was nothing that we were both on the same part with, but she was not invested in Sense8 at all. And just with the casual setup of 8 people connected in some strange way, different vignettes, starting right in the middle at episode 4, she really dug it and just immediately jumped in. And I think having a little bit of space to kind of come back to it again, it was cool to see those characters again. I think I'm going to enjoy the remaining episodes much more as we go forward. And been watching BoJack Horseman, which, if I'm not mistaken, is what's on the lookout.
That's right. This is the segment where we talk about shows on streaming services that you should be on the lookout for. If you didn't hear last year, BoJack Horseman is a comedy cartoon. It was sold as sort of a comedy sort of animation, but it definitely takes a turn. Almost immediate. After only a couple of episodes, it becomes a dramedy. In very serious form,
and with real heart too, which you wouldn't expect. You see real character transformations, and there's some darkness in this show amidst its hilarious cartoon animal.
Can I ask you guys a question? Because we're just talking about how much stuff there's out there. And I remember as a kid, Dukes of Hazzard, let's go run home and watch that. And maybe Knight Rider. There's maybe 3 or 4 shows a week, and that was kind of it. And there's everything else that was sort of filler. And now you look at, there's so much really great stuff out there. Are we going to just start planning our careers and our lives by whatever job I can do that'll allow me to watch as much of this TV as I can?
Oh, yeah, if not, surprise, you've revealed the reason we do Cordkillers.
It's part of my job, Andrew, to watch all of these things. And even I haven't watched BoJack Horseman yet, and I want to. I desperately want to, and I should have, so that we could talk about it on spoiler time. But I just didn't get a chance, right? And it's the same thing that Brian's talking about, where he's like, I didn't get a chance to catch up on that thing. I promise I will. There's too much good stuff.
No, not too much. There's just the right amount.
No, there's way too much. Stop it.
There's a lot of great stuff.
We want more filler.
Great content, like on the CW.
Emails.
Good
from
old
dispatches from the front.
Well done.
5 minutes East Coast.
5 minutes East Coast. Get ready. Places, people.
Savo in silly Schenectady, New York, says, hey, I'm still a few weeks behind. I don't know if you mentioned this. The people of SideClick have relaunched their product. They're only $13,000 away from their $80,000 goal, and they have 27 days left. SideClick was the attachment for your Roku remote, for instance, that would add channel buttons for your television. So it would, if all you were using was a Roku and a regular TV, you suddenly had a universal remote.
Yep, and it was programmable so that you can handle, your Roku thing doesn't by default let you control the volume and all that stuff. I'm glad they gave it another go. I mean, it looks like they got 25 days to go, and they're practically there. Congratulations! I really like this.
Did it not get funded last time?
I assume not, since they're relaunching it again, unless they're trying to pull some kind of Cloud Imperium perpetual nonstop Kickstarter for Star Citizen. Don says, guys, please understand that live TV is essential to the sports fan. I know you two are not with basketball, hockey, soccer, golf, and football. The major broadcasters like NBC, CBS, ABC, and ESPN make billions, not to mention billions more for teams and players, then add in endorsements. Please get someone on your podcast who's tech savvy and is a sports lover. Good for you. We just did it. TheHockeyBuzz.com. Eck just showed up.
I don't understand what Don's talking about, because we say that all the time.
Well,
that live sports is essential to the package. And when we talked about ESPN, we talked about how this is a sign that maybe there are enough people who it isn't. All the assumptions we made may be a little different. But we do say this. Also, I watch lots of sports. And I watch live sports.
You don't love it enough, Tom. If you truly loved it,
my love clear.
But yeah, I mean, we don't disagree with you, Don. Live sports is important.
I do.
We say that all the time.
I do.
Hey, so we got a rundown about I asked if there's anyone who hated Plex out there, and I want you to hear this rundown on this is his version of complaining about the Plex. He says Plex is really good at one thing: managing libraries of locally stored non-DRM'd content. What Plex does not do is live TV or PVR functionality or any streaming service or website. Yes, there are Plex channels that'll give you content from the web, but in his experience, they're very glitchy and they rarely work. Partly because when they're almost all scraping web content, making them very prone to breaking. When they do work, figuring out what content is actually available on the channel is worse than figuring out what's available on free Hulu, and the experience will just make Brian's grandmother a very sad panda. TLDR, if you have a large library of local media, Plex is awesome. For everything else, Plex is a pain. That's interesting. I had not heard that.
Yeah, well, I knew that the apps weren't the best on Plex, but the thing is, you put Plex on your Roku or something, and then you use the other Roku apps for the Netflix and the Hulu and all of that. And that's always been my thing with Plex is like if you have legally ripped videos that you want to access remotely, it's great for that. Otherwise, it's either breaking the law or it's not. I don't know what it's good for.
Yeah, fair enough. Hey, thank you so much to Andrew Main. Where could people see more of your beautiful face?
You can get into my beautiful head in my book, Name of the Devil. Just came out from HarperCollins, available fine bookstores everywhere. It's the second in the Jessica Blackwood series. It's a female FBI agent from a family of magicians. In this case, she goes up against a very sinister force that takes her from the backwoods of Appalachia, maybe to the Vatican.
Right on.
Is she going to be a pope? I guess I'll have to
Name of the Devil. Maybe. Tom, spoilers hasn't started yet.
All right, so check that out. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on diamondclub.tv Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, except next week we'll be on a little later live because I'm traveling. We will see you next time.
Hey guys, Tom and Brian here. We just wanted to say thank you to all of our $5 patrons who keep us loud, live, and independent. You guys make Cordkillers the production that it is.
Your name appears in the video credits and appears in our hearts. And if you'd like to become one of them or see who they are, you can go to patreon.com/cordkillers.
You'll need to do more than just go there, though. You'll have to sign up and, pledge an amount. But
unless you just want to see who they are.
Well, I mean, you could gawk. That's a little creepy, isn't it?
If you want to be a gawker,
let's go.
It's up to you.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.